in a very strange way, the Constitution Express in Canada, that actually started in 1980, had its beginnings in about 1879, and maybe even earlier. The first beginning Prime Minister of Canada in 1879 declared himself committed to the elimination of Indian people. That was his first statement, which actually shouldn't have been surprising, because for about 200 years before that, France, Britain, the Dutch had decided the same thing. But they decided it in a different way. They decided that they would work with the various tribes and have the tribes collect beaver furs and ermine. The elite in Paris and in London and in Amsterdam in the 17th century, that is in 1600s, and then in the 1700s, wore top hats and shawls because it was cold in the wintertime in that part of the world, and they wanted to wear shawls made from furs of ermine and other sources, but they also wanted those hats made out of beaver pelts. And they learned that beaver pelts could be got in Canada. And in about 1609, the French began the process of occupying Canada. And the British decided they too needed to make money. And they were sending companies over to North America with the military to enforce the business that they wanted to carry out. The English wanted access to furs, albeit the kinds of furs that the French wanted too. But something that the French didn't talk about, that the English did talk about, was that they wanted land. And that was a little hurtful from the point of view of many of the nation's views, because you don't talk about giving land, you talk about using land. English sort of changed the rules. They started moving their fences out and cutting down the forest and saying, this is our land. Many of the nation's people began to realize what land rights was about. That is, the right to someone's land. That's a kind of abstraction, a strange notion when you think about it. But they began to realize that they had to have control over the land, otherwise the English would steal it all. And what did that mean? Did that mean they'd lose land? Well, that was less important so much as not having access to hunting, not access to their fields where they had grown corn and squash and beans, not being able to find materials for shelter or for clothing. I mean, it was like, you want to take our grocery store. And that's what the English didn't think about, because that's not how they used land. They used it to enrich themselves individually and to exclude other people from access, which is honestly not exactly the way the various nations dealt with each other. Yes, it's true, they would compete with one another for access to these foods and resources, and even occupy lands. But it wasn't the land that was being occupied. It was access to the resources that was important. The fur trade was the center of economic and political activity. The popular discussion is that that was trade, but so much trade did not occur. And what that really says from the very beginning of this story is that the emerging confrontations with the Europeans was all about land and what you could take from it. It wasn't called Canada at that time. At that time, it had a different name. It was named by the Micmac and the Abenaki and the Wascarini and the Cree. They called it Nitasan. Nitasan. N-I-T-A-S-S-A-N is how we spell it now. And what that meant was our land. And that set the stage for what became a major confrontation between what became Canada and all of the different nations who remained in Canada, a confrontation called the Constitution Express.
Na 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 na.